My name is Sarah Osei. I am 44 years old. I am a secondary school librarian. And on a Thursday morning in September, I was served with custody papers by a man I had not seen in 8 years. His name was Ryan Cole. He was Amara's biological father. Amara was 8 years old when those papers arrived. She had been living with me since she was 3 weeks old. 3 weeks. She had come home from the hospital in a car seat I had bought the day her mother called me from the delivery room and said she could not do this alone. Her mother was my younger sister, Jade. Jade had been struggling with addiction since she was 19. She had been clean during the pregnancy. She had tried so hard. But 3 weeks after Amara was born, Jade had called me in the early hours of a Tuesday morning and said she needed help. I had driven 40 minutes in the dark. I had taken Amara home. I had not expected it to become permanent. But Ryan had disappeared before Amara was born, and Jade had deteriorated slowly over the following months, and permanent had crept up on me the way permanent things do. Not as a decision, as an accumulation of every morning I had gotten up and fed Amara and taken her to nursery and collected her and done it again the next day. 8 years of accumulation. And now Ryan Cole had returned with a solicitor and a custody application and the specific confidence of a man who believed 8 years of absence was a recoverable position. I stood on my doorstep and I read the papers. Then I went inside. I put the kettle on, and I opened the drawer where I kept everything.
Let me tell you about the drawer. It was not a filing system anyone would recognize as deliberate. A kitchen drawer in my terraced house in Leeds. The kind of drawer that holds batteries and takeaway menus and things that do not have anywhere else to go. But at the back of the drawer, behind the takeaway menus and the spare keys and the birthday candles, there was a cardboard folder. I had never set out to build it. I had simply never thrown anything away. Inside the folder was 8 years of Amara's life documented in the specific accidental way of someone who keeps things not out of strategy, but out of love. The hospital discharge papers from the day I brought her home, 3 weeks old, my name listed as the responsible adult. Her red book, the one the health visitor stamps at every developmental check. My signature at every appointment for 8 years. Every measurement, every milestone. School reports from nursery through to year 3. My name at the top of every emergency contact form. My mobile number as the first number called in every school communication.
Swimming certificates, dance show programs with her name in the cast list, a photograph from every birthday cards she had made me that said things like, "Sarah, you are my best person, and I love you to the moon and also to Tesco." Medical letters, dentist appointments, an optician's assessment from last spring when we had discovered she needed glasses, and she had cried because she thought she would look silly, and I had taken her to the optician 3 times until we found frames she loved. Letters from her class teacher last Christmas, unsolicited, just a note to say that Amara was thriving and that it was clear she had a very stable and loving home life and that her guardian should be proud. Her class teacher had called her my guardian without being asked, because that is what I was, in every way that mattered, for 8 years. The cardboard folder was 4 inches thick. I put it on the kitchen table. I called Grace Okafor. Grace had been my solicitor for 6 years. She had helped me with the informal guardianship arrangement when Jade's situation had become long-term. She had filed the paperwork. She had advised me on every step. She answered on a Saturday and listened without interrupting while I explained what had happened. When I finished, she said, "The folder. Tell me about the folder." I described it. Everything in it. 8 years of accumulated evidence of a life I had built around a child who had needed someone to build it around her. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that changed the shape of how I understood the next 6 months. She said, "The folder is not just evidence of your involvement, it is a record of consistent presence. Courts making decisions about a child's welfare look for one thing above all others: not biology, not legal paperwork, consistent presence over time. The adult who has been there, every day, for years." She said, 8 years of that folder is 8 years of consistent presence documented in your own hand without ever knowing you would need it. She said, Ryan Cole has 8 years of absence to explain. We had an appointment on Monday morning.
The object at the center of everything was the Red Book. Not the folder as a whole, specifically the Red Book, the child health record that every baby is given at birth, the one the health visitor stamps at every check. There were 43 stamps in Amara's Red Book, my signature beside every one. Grace had reviewed the folder over the weekend. When I arrived at her office on Monday, she had the Red Book open on her desk. She said, "This is the most important single document in that folder. 43 developmental checks over 8 years, your signature at every appointment, a continuous, unbroken record of you being present for every health check this child has ever had." She said, Ryan Cole's name did not appear in this book once, not on the day Amara was born, not at any check since. He had been absent from the first page to the last. She was going to make sure the court understood exactly what that meant.
Ryan's solicitor contacted Grace 2 weeks after the initial papers were served. The position they presented was that Ryan had experienced personal difficulties in the years following Amara's birth, that he had sought help, that he had been stable for the past 3 years, that he had a right to know his daughter and a right to be part of her life. All of this was presented as though 8 years were a gap that could be explained away with good intentions and a stable present. Grace's response was measured and documented and devastating in the specific way of someone who has spent 20 years watching courts make decisions about children. She submitted the folder as evidence, indexed, referenced, every document explained in a covering statement that traced Amara's life from hospital discharge to present day. She submitted the Red Book separately, with a paragraph that simply counted the stamps, 43, all attended by Sarah Osei, 0 attended by Ryan Cole. She submitted the letter from Amara's class teacher, the one that called me her guardian unprompted, and she submitted something I had not known Grace was going to obtain until she told me: school attendance records for 8 years, showing who had dropped Amara off, who had collected her, who had attended every parents' evening and every sports day and every school play. The same name every time. I want to pause here, because this story is not about Ryan Cole. It is about what it means to show up every day for 8 years without knowing that one day someone would count every time you had. If you have ever loved a child who was not yours by birth, but entirely yours by presence, drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. And subscribe right now, because what happened in the family court hearing and what the judge said at the end is the part I have thought about every day since. The hearing was in February, 6 months after the papers had arrived on my doorstep. Amara did not attend. She was at school. I had told her that there were some grown-up conversations happening about making sure everything was properly organized. She had accepted this with the specific trust of a child who has been raised by someone who does not lie to her. Grace had arranged for Amara to speak separately with a court-appointed guardian, a professional whose job was to understand what Amara wanted and to represent that to the court independently of either adult's position. The guardian's report said Amara was settled, happy, and secure, that she understood Sarah was her family, that she had been told her mother loved her and was not well, that she knew she had a biological father she had not met, That when asked what she wanted, she had said she wanted to stay with Sarah because Sarah was her person. Sarah was her person. The Guardian had quoted her directly. I had read that report 3 times in Grace's office before the hearing. Each time the words had done something different to me.
Ryan appeared in court with his solicitor and a character reference from a counselor who had been working with him for 2 years. The character reference spoke to his stability, his commitment to change, his genuine desire to know his daughter. I do not doubt that any of this was true, but the judge's job was not to assess Ryan's potential. Her job was to assess Amara's welfare. She had the folder, the red book, the school records, the Guardian's report. She had 8 years of documented, consistent presence on one side of the scale, and 3 years of stated good intentions on the other. The judgment took 40 minutes to deliver. Primary residence to remain with Sarah Osei. Guardianship formally recognized. Amara's welfare best served by continuity and stability in the home where she had spent her entire childhood. Ryan was granted supervised contact, a structured introduction, professionally supported, with a review at 6 months. The judge said something I will remember for the rest of my life. She said, the law recognizes biology, but the law serves the child, and the child's welfare is best served by the person who has been her consistent and loving presence from the beginning. The record before this court is unambiguous. Ms. Osei has been that person. The record before this court is unambiguous. 8 years of a kitchen drawer, 43 stamps in a red book. Unambiguous.
Jade. My sister has been in a residential program for 14 months, the longest sustained period of stability she has had in a decade. She calls Amara every Sunday evening. Amara draws pictures for her, and I photograph them and send them. Jade keeps them on her wall. They are building something, slowly, on a foundation of honesty and small, consistent gestures. I do not know what that will look like in 5 years. I hope for things I do not yet know how to ask for. But I know this. Whatever happens with Jade, Amara has a home. She has someone who gets up every morning and makes her breakfast and asks about her day and attends the parents' evenings and finds the right glasses frames. She has her person. Amara came home from school the day of the hearing to find me making her favorite dinner, pasta with the specific sauce she had declared the best thing in the world when she was 5 and had never revised her opinion on since. She dropped her bag in the hall the way she always did and came into the kitchen and asked how the grown-up conversations had gone. I told her everything was properly organized now, that she was staying with me, and that there were some other things that would happen slowly and carefully over time, and that I would explain more when she was older. She nodded with the specific seriousness of someone who has decided to trust the adult in front of them. Then she said, "Can we have garlic bread as well?" I said yes. She said, "Good, because I had a terrible day and I need garlic bread." I laughed, the real kind, the kind that fills a kitchen. She looked at me and said, "Why are you crying if you're laughing?" I told her sometimes those two things happen at the same time. She considered this carefully. Then she said, "That seems inefficient." She was 8 years old. She was entirely right. The red book is in the cardboard folder. The cardboard folder is in the kitchen drawer, behind the takeaway menus and the spare keys and the birthday candles. It does not look like evidence. It looks like a life. That is exactly what it is. Here is what 8 years of a kitchen drawer taught me. Show up. Not because you are building a case, not because you are preparing for a legal hearing, not because someone will one day count how many times you were there. Show up because the child in front of you needs someone to show up. Do it every morning. Do it for the school plays and the optician appointments and the garlic bread on terrible days. Do it without keeping score, because love that keeps score is not the same as love that simply keeps showing up. And one day, if you ever need it, someone will count for you. 43 stamps, every one of them yours. Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. And subscribe. I am here every week with a new story. She showed up every day. When it mattered, she was already there. That is what they could not take from her.